Now, the other source of protests this morning is the ongoing uproar over the actions of ICE agents detaining alleged illegal immigrants. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass met with the media in California as National Guard troops continue to protect federal buildings in the city after the president deployed them. She talked about how she feels the Trump administration overstepped its authority and why she questioned why the troops are still in the city. She criticized the president, but not by name and only by referring to the administration as the federal government. Bass asked people to protest peacefully and warned if they don't, the president could decide to put more troops in the city.
I always raised the point that the day before, on Thursday of last week, everything was peaceful in Los Angeles. Nothing was happening here. Nothing was going on that warranted the behavior of the federal government over the last few days. We are here today because the raids have caused fear and panic, because they felt empowered that they could shove and cuff a U.S. senator. How could you come to town and say you are rescuing Los Angeles and you don't even know the U.S. senator? We're here today because we are clear that we are a test case, and they want to see just how far federal overreach can go. Can the federal government come in and seize power from a state and from a local jurisdiction? How much will the American people put up with? How much will Californians put up with? How much will Angelenos put up with? How much will people from all of the other 88 cities in our county put up with? And we're here to tell you that we're not going to put up with it. We're not going to solve anything by chasing people at car washes, by intimidating families in their schools, or by sending troops into an American city.
Hour and 40 minutes from now, there is another anti-ICE protest planned for today in Metro Atlanta along Chamblee-Tucker Road, and officials hoping that event is not a repeat of the gathering earlier this week in Brookhaven. 11 Alive's Angelina Salcido joins us now. Angelina, you spent quite some time covering that event in Brookhaven earlier this week, and I know you've covered protests in the past. So what stood out to you about that demonstration in Brookhaven earlier this week?
You know, Dan, it was interesting because these protests, or that demonstration, really is stemming off of what's happening in Los Angeles, which we can see. The Party for Socialism and Liberation was the organizer of that protest. The organizers were in close coordination with the city leaders of Brookhaven, also with the police department in Brookhaven as well, to make sure that everything was going to go peacefully. And that's exactly what we saw for hours as they were out there protesting against what was happening in Los Angeles and what has been continuing to happen across the country when it comes to immigration arrests and immigration raids, which we have seen here in Georgia and in Metro Atlanta as well. But really, for this protest, they were basically wanting to stand in solidarity with the people of Los Angeles because of the militarization that they have seen in Los Angeles, and because this group specifically feels that by sending in thousands members of the National Guard and 700 members of the Marines to Los Angeles, they're basically trying to scare people out of protesting and using their voice to stand for what they believe is right. So basically, they chose to protest for several hours. We did see different agitators, which is what police said towards the end, come out, and basically the protest took a turn after that. They had a deadline of 9:30, which is when they were supposed to end. The organizers at that time told everybody, thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate you guys being here, for choosing to exercise your right, your First Amendment right to voice your opinion, to stand in solidarity with people that believe the same thing that you believe. And then after that, once the police started enforcing, okay, it's now 9:30, you're now basically breaking the law because you're not supposed to be here anymore, they started to get a little bit more rough, and that's when the agitators came out, started throwing fireworks, tear gas was spread. We saw some vandalization of the police patrol troopers. I believe 3 of them were damaged. They had their windshields broken in. A wooden stake was thrown through one of them as well. And we saw some officers get confronted by those agitators as well. 6 arrests were made that night. But really, the police said that they did not want that to overshadow what happened throughout the majority of the day, which was that they had a peaceful protest, which saw over 2,000 people come out to stand in solidarity for anti-immigration laws, which is what they really wanted to do, and that was the main message of the protest that day.
Yeah, Angelina, you had a great interview that evening with Lieutenant Kissel, I believe, of Brookhaven Police, and he said, look, we have some damaged police cars here. We can fix those. We're not worried about that right now. What we want is to make sure people have that opportunity to express their First Amendment right. Looking ahead to this protest that you're going to be covering a little later today, do you expect it to be more anti-ICE specifically, or is it going to be more of this larger anti-authoritarian wave that we're seeing, like with No Kings? Are these two separate topics we're talking about, or is it going to be somewhat combined today?
You know, it was interesting because we spoke to the organizer yesterday, and I believe that it is more focused on ICE and what we have been seeing with the ICE activity, especially in our area, more frequently. And I believe that it's because, you know, we're seeing a lot more people come out. And as we continue to talk to people in the community about why they're coming out, a lot of people are coming out to stand for their family members that cannot come out to stand out. A lot of them are undocumented, and a lot of them are fearful for their lives and feel that there's just a lot of things that they cannot do right now because of the process that they're currently going through to try and obtain citizenship or permanent status in this country. But because of the way that things are going, they just don't feel safe kind of living their day-to-day lives. So their family members have been going out to try and exercise their right and try to voice what their family members that are undocumented cannot. So I believe that the protest today is going to be focused on that. When it comes to the organizers, they do say that it will be focused on that, but they're also focused on what President Trump has been doing in Los Angeles and kind of that authoritarian militarization of trying to use maybe like a scare tactic to try and have people not voice their opinion. But really, when we spoke to the organizers, they just wanted people to come out to support immigrants, even if they weren't immigrants. They want people to know that this really is everybody's fight because it has a lot to do with the working class. And at the end of the day, they say that everybody is a part of the working class, so everybody should want to support this same message and stand united with them as well.
You know, you bring up an interesting point here about fear, and you and I know, working in the TV business, sometimes it's like pulling teeth getting people to talk on camera when it's important to get a quote from them or to get their perspective, and we want to share it with the greater community. When you're out there, do you find that you have to do some serious convincing to get people to share their name, to share their perspective? And if there is so much fear, do you see that folks are hesitant to stand out there on a public street and to show their face and then to show it on camera? Or do you see that they are overcoming that fear to get their message out?
I think that as time goes on, I think that people are becoming a little bit more bold. And I think that people are becoming a little bit more comfortable with choosing to break the mold that they normally would not follow, and choosing to say, you know what, this is the time for me to finally stand up. And if it's not just going to be for me, then maybe it's going to be for this person who feels that they can't. And like I said, we met two girls that were cousins on Tuesday that were out there protesting for their family members that wanted to be out there and were actually going to go. But these young girls and these young women told them, you know, just because of the way that things have been going lately, and because of what we're seeing in Los Angeles, and we don't know what this protest is going to do, let's just have you stay home just so that we can make sure that you stay safe. And it's, you know, it was like, we'll kind of bring them and we'll carry them with our hearts, and we'll share their message, and we'll hold signs that even like they created. So I think that it really just depends on the family. It depends on their friends as well, whether they choose to go out or whether they choose not to go out. But I think a lot more people are finding that now is the time for them to go out and voice their concerns and stand in solidarity with one another, because it is becoming a lot more personal. When it comes to us talking to people, I think that people are really open, and I think that people are really just willing to speak about something that they're really, really passionate about. Now, when it comes to someone who may be undocumented, which is what we have run into a few times when we have been out there, you know, we always ask people beforehand when we are interviewing them what their status might be. Do they feel comfortable being on camera? Do they want to show their name? Do they want to just use their first name, their last name? What is the best method for us to use in order to make them feel comfortable sharing their story, so then that way, you know, we can make sure that they're also safe at the same time. And a lot of people are open to that, and I think that makes them a little bit more receptive to us, and then to also trusting us to be able to share their story. And that's how we're able to really make sure that we hone in on their stories and really share their firsthand experience, because at the end of the day, you know, we may not have that experience ourselves, and the story is really about them because they're living it firsthand. And so I always just try myself just to let them know, we are here to give you a voice in a moment where you may feel that you may not have one. And so if they feel open to do that, which we have found that a lot of people have felt open to do that, and even if they're speaking on behalf of their family members or if they're speaking for themselves, whether we show their faces on camera or we don't, people have been pretty open to do that. And that's been a pretty eye-opening thing, I think, for us to see. Even people that speak in Spanish, I speak Spanish just because I am Latina. And so I've had a lot of interesting conversations with people in our community that are Latino, just about their feelings surrounding this issue and about how they've been feeling kind of navigating the last several months, and especially as we've seen ICE activity ramp up here in our own community and how things have changed. And it's been very interesting to see how they've been feeling the last several weeks as well.
Angelina, thanks for peeling back the curtain there and showing us what it takes to tell some of these stories. I'm going to let you head on because I know you got to get to this protest here soon, but just real quickly, where is it? I believe Embry Hills area. I mean, how long is it going to last, and what can we expect this afternoon as we continue to speak with you throughout the day live from that protest?
Yes, so this is going to be on Chamblee Tucker Road. I believe that it's probably going to be about 8 to 10 minutes away from where we were the last time. Ironically, for No King's Day, they will have a protest on Chamblee Tucker Road that is just about 8 minutes away from this protest that's going to be for immigration. So you're going to have two separate protests on Chamblee Tucker Road. We will be at the immigration protest, so that's what we'll be bringing you live. It should last several hours. The organizers were telling me that they were expecting to see several thousand people. They saw 2,000 on Tuesday. It is a weekend. It's a Saturday. They believe that people have time. So we'll just see what that turnout looks like, and we'll of course bring you the live images from there as well.
Thank you, Angelina. We'll be watching for rain potentially a little later in the forecast today as well. But thank you so much for your perspective today as we're adding context to this important story. Angelina mentioned more protests today. We know there are at least 15 protests scheduled across parts of our area, including 2 in Atlanta, and a full slate of demonstrations from Woodstock south to Noonan. Governor Brian Kemp this morning responding to the arrests in that Brookhaven protest that Angelina was just discussing, saying that in part his office stands ready to take whatever action is needed to safeguard communities from crime and violence while also respecting the right to peaceful assembly. And Georgia's Attorney General Chris Carr saying in part, in Georgia, if you engage in violence for the purpose of changing public policy, you can be charged with domestic terrorism. He says we will defend the right to peacefully protest and we will not hesitate to bring domestic terrorism charges for those who earn it. Mr. Carr releasing that statement in the hours after we learned of those arrests in Brookhaven a little earlier this week. And final preparations are underway in the nation's capital for the parade commemorating the Army's 250th anniversary. It coincides with President Trump's 79th birthday, and it's why we're even talking about all this today.